Hey guys, Scott back again with a new beer dissection video for you. Today I have a classic beer called Shiner Bock. Okay, it should not be probably unfamiliar to many of you. I think the beer has been around roughly I want to say 100 years. I'm going to address the elephant in the room about this beer in just a second, but it's out of Shiner, Texas, Spoetzl, I think it's, if I'm pronouncing that properly, brewery. It's right here, it is. Spoetzl, no, established 1909. It's right here on the bottle. So it's a little over 100 years old. It's been around for a very long time. I got to admit, I don't remember the last time I had this. I'm not going to say I never had it before, but definitely it's been at least several years or maybe even a few decades ago that I had this beer. Definitely not since I've been really involved in studying about beer and, maybe my early days of home brewing, I had this. So again, it's called Shiner Bock. It's roughly, if I remember correctly, it's about 4.4% alcohol, which puts you right around that Budweiser American Lager territory, as well as very low bitterness IBU units. I think it's roughly 14. So that leads me to the elephant in the room about this beer being called Shiner Bock. You will notice there's a goat on there, right, on the label. Now, in German, Bock means goat. Now, I went into a lot more detail on my Doppelbock video. If you look under what is styles, and I have Doppelbock, or even under maybe beer dissection, I forget which Doppelbock I had that day, that I reviewed the whole history of Bock. So, like as I just said, the Bock is a term for goat. So you'll see goat on a lot of goats on a lot of the Doppelbocks as well as Bock beers. And just to highlight a few things from that video, if you really want to go into the history, go to that video. It's from the Einbach region of Germany. And when they had a kind of a dialect back then, hundreds of years ago, they would say Einbach, and they would think it was Bock. And that the style Bock was derived from the Einbach region of Germany. And in that video, I talk about how the monks, the Polaner monks, formed the Doppelbock beer, and they were as guests of the royalty of Bavaria, and the whole thing from there. So that's where the term Bock is coming from. With that said, this beer, like I said, is the furthest away from a Bock style of beer. In Germany, they have strict guidelines. Bocks have to be somewhere roughly, I think, 6.3, 6.4% alcohol to about 7.5, roughly. They have to have, and the Doppelbocks are roughly 7.5 up to close to 10%. So and you can get a lot of this information from the Beer Judge Certification Program, as well as reading just some general history of German rules for brewing. Now, that doesn't mean our American brewers have to follow German guidelines. It's just the fact that the reason why I like those guidelines is that when you see something advertised as a Bock, as a consumer, you're expecting certain criteria. This beer, even though it's very popular, and again, I haven't tasted it in years, I'm going to crack it open here in a second. I may be pleasantly surprised on the flavor, but it's really by alcoholic strength nowhere close to it. A lot of Bock beers are going to also have very strong malt profile, things like that. So again, when you see Shiner Bock, this is not like your typical German Bock beers. Okay, so that's the first thing I kind of want to address with this beer. Again, it doesn't mean that you're not going to enjoy it. It's been around 100 years, a little more than 100 years, 109 years to be exact or so. But just so you understand that. And again, please go back to my beer dissection and or what is style. When I discuss Doppelbock, I go into a lot more history of the term Bock and then the term Doppelbock from there. Okay? There's nothing too much more on the bottle other than, from Spoetzl Brewing Company in Shiner, Texas. So they say it combines the old world Bavarian heritage. I wouldn't be surprised, again, when the German immigration came in, especially the 1800s, I wouldn't be surprised if their influence on this beer was very big back then in the south central part of the United States. It's just that this is not going to be probably something that is going to be exactly like a Bock beer in Germany. All right, so Anyway, let's crack this bad boy open, okay? Again, this style and this beer is very easily available, and I think I may even got this in a regular grocery store. I think my wife may have picked it up. Okay, so let's pour this out. I just got in my regular 2-pint glass here. All right, let's take a look at it. Okay, so we got this nice kind of dark amber copper color. Pretty clear other than my nucleation points on my glass. I always tell you, my glasses are clean. Sometimes I'm not hand scrubbing them all to be perfectly beer clean since I'm drinking mostly in the comforts of my own home. We got about 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch of head. It seems to be fleeting pretty quickly just from when I just started pouring this, almost like it would be an American lager. But nice color, nice clarity. Okay, so let's take a sniff of the aroma. Okay, not too bad. It's kind of got that nice toast, bread crusty, graham crackery type of aroma. It's got also that herbal, spicy herbal, floral kind of aroma from the hops. I don't know the hops that they're using in this or the grist. I should mention, as I slam this for not being a true bock beer, this is more like a Vienna Lager. And again, I don't know if they're using Vienna malt, but it really falls under, and a lot of the criticism is that it's not really a bock beer. It kind of falls more Vienna Lager. And the alcoholic strength, and even just looking at the color of this and some of the aromas right now, seem to align with that a little bit. Bocks will have a lot of Maillard reactions and things like that in the aroma and the flavor. But again, with that said, I find this pretty pleasant on the nose. If you like, if you're someone that sticks your nose up at like even American lagers or some of your Mexican style like Modelo and stuff like that, you do not like that herbal, spicy, floral aroma with the hops, you may not like this or care for this, which is fine. But you do definitely get that toasty, bread crusty aroma. Okay. They may very well be using some Vienna malt or a light crystal malt, maybe like a 20 or 40 Lovibond. But you definitely get herbal, floral kind of hop aroma there, as well as the malt aroma that I talked about there. But pretty nice, and this is what I would expect for a Vienna Lager. Okay, you're definitely not getting fruit or pine or resin or tropical fruit from a beer like this, and I wouldn't expect it. Okay, going back to the Beer Judge Certification Program guidelines is that as a consumer, again, when you walk into your local brewery, if you see Bock or Doppelbock, you're expecting something. If you see something as, like Vienna Lager, you're expecting something. If you see something Bock and it tastes like a Vienna Lager, then you may be very disappointed. And actually, I think the brewery should be a little bit, called out on it at times. Because again, even though those aren't written laws or rules, but in my opinion, I expect certain things when I see certain styles up there. You see Hefeweizen, you're expecting clove banana in the beer. Okay, if you were getting American wheat, you're not expecting that. So just a couple examples to just kind of go. I'm sorry to go down a tangent here a little bit. Okay, so let's take a look at this one more time. Again, very pretty looking beer. Let me take a swig of it. Cheers. Definitely medium carbonation to high carbonation, very effervescent. I definitely get the malt, similar thing, that bread crust, graham cracker kind of malt profile, like a typical Vienna Lager would have, or something use some crystal malt. Hops, you do still get a little bit of that floral herbal kind of flavor, which if they are using German varieties of hops or American versions of it, that's what you would expect. It definitely tastes like a Vienna Lager, which I've reviewed one from a local brewery, West Hampton Beach Brewing Company, very recently. They make a Vienna Lager, very good one. light-bodied here. This is a kind of a, you know, I could tell there's no alcoholic warmth, very light body, kind of one of these crushable styles of beer. I could just tell by just taking 2-3 sips of it. But they're pretty nice, very, you know, thirst quenching. But enough malt there now to kind of support things. Pairings with this, with a typical Vienna Lager, a lot of pork dishes, veal if you're into eating veal. This would kind of complement very well. Some other German fare, Wurst and things like that would probably be great with this. But it's very crushable, very thirst quenching, quaffable. If you're drinking this in volume on a summer day, this would be very nice. Bitterness is definitely low, and what I say, roughly 14 IBUs. You'd expect that. It's not a full-bodied beer, so you don't need a lot of hop bitterness to balance some of that, you know, the sweetness. So, you know, it is kind of crisp, pretty dry for the most part, but there is a little bit of a malt backbone. I would compare this to, you know, like a Modelo, the dark, a Dos Equis, even the light and or the dark, as far as the body of things like that. It's kind of an upscale American lager. So, you know, I would take this over a Budweiser, a Miller, a Coors any day of the week. But it definitely doesn't have, there's really nothing exceptional about it. But I can see why it's been, you know, a beer that's been around over 100 years and why it has a lot of popularity across the country, especially in the Southwest. Because this is a beer that I would say just ice this thing down, sit on your porch, and you can kind of consume a few without worrying too much about being too tipsy. Because I think, like I said, I think it's about 4.4%, 4.3% alcohol sitting there with the lagers. So again, guys, you know, I would rate this beer, I don't know, a C. You know, again, for a Vienna Lager, I would probably give it like a C+. My West Hampton Beach one was definitely better than this. And you know, it's tough to compare this. It's apples to oranges if I'm comparing this to a New England IPA or a West Coast IPA or a porter. You can't do that. But I wouldn't stick my nose up at it, but there are definitely other better beers out there. I would probably even go with a Dos Equis Dark over this. But it's just, again, nothing out of its world. But it is meant, I think, to be brewed, you know, very quaffable, just regular lager. I mean, it is a lager, even though it's not a bock. So again, herbal, spiciness, floral on the aroma and the flavor, and has a little bit of a malt backbone with, you know, it's not going to drink as clean as, say, your American lager, which doesn't have much flavor to it at all. This does have some flavor with the malt, biscuity, bread crust, graham cracker kind of malt profile. So anyway, guys, that's the beer dissection for today. The classic Shiner Bock. I'm sure I'm going to have it pop over my shoulder a few times if I haven't already. You know, an okay beer. You know, like, you know, you're in a pinch. You got someone with, you know, pretty level taste buds. You want a neutral beer. There's no problem with this beer. It's just one of those, it's okay. But again, it is definitely not a bock, okay? I would argue this is not really falling within, you know, a bock style of beer. I wouldn't call it a bock. I'd call it more of a Vienna Lager. And again, I don't want to sound like I'm splitting hairs, but a bock and or doppelbock is a completely different profile when I drink it, at least. So anyway, guys, hopefully a little info there about this beer, Shiner Bock, Vienna Lager, in my opinion, and many others' opinion. Till the next beer dissection video, have a great day. Take care.